Do you know an effective way to deal with change? What would you do if you suddenly lost your job? How would you manage if your business faced an unexpected problem? Nothing in life is permanent. Change is a constant in life. The difference lies in how you face these changes or challenges. Who Moved My Cheese tells the story of 4 individuals, one of whom will reveal the best way to handle changes that come your way. Our characters reside in a maze, a labyrinth filled with numerous rooms and corridors. Cheese in our story represents the desires in our lives, whether it be a stable job, a successful business, a loving family, or good health and peace of mind. What would you do if one day your cheese was taken away? Through the journey of these 4 characters, you might see yourself. Sometimes accepting change is incredibly hard. Often, thinking about the future can leave you feeling depressed and hopeless. As you follow the adventurous tales of these characters, you will learn valuable lessons that you can apply to your own life. Long ago, in a distant land, 4 characters lived inside a maze. 2 of them were mice named Sniff and Scurry, while the other 2 were tiny humans the size of mice named Hem and Haw. Sniff and Scurry were simple, straightforward mice. Like all mice, they spent their days searching for cheese. This involved sniffing around and scurrying through the maze, as their names suggest. On the other hand, Hem and Haw, with their complex human-like brains, experienced emotions and held beliefs, making cheese equally precious to them, bringing them as much happiness as it did the mice. Every morning, the mice and the little humans would put on their running shoes, ready for the day. They would emerge from their small holes and navigate the maze in search of cheese. The maze was filled with twists and turns, numerous doors and chambers. Some chambers housed cheese, while others were dark and empty, where one could easily lose their way. Hidden within this labyrinth were many secrets that could fill one's life with joy. Sniff and Scurry used trial and error during their search. They would enter a corridor, and if it turned out to be empty, they would turn back and move on, noting which corridors were empty and relentlessly searching for new ones. Hem and Haw, with their complex brains, had a more intricate view of things. Often their emotions and beliefs would dominate, making their search more challenging and complicated. Yet each had their own methods to reach the cheese station. This was the place where heaps of cheese were always found. After discovering this treasure trove of cheese, Sniff, Scurry, Hem, and Haw settled into their routines. Sniff and Scurry would wake up early, put on their running shoes, and sprint to Station C. Upon arrival, they would take off their shoes and hang them around their necks for quick re-wearing, and then indulge in cheese to their heart's content. Hem and Haw, however, were different. They would wake up late, stroll slowly to Station C. They were in no hurry, because they knew the treasure trove of cheese would always be there. Reaching Station C, they would rest a bit, relax, take off their shoes, and slip into their slippers. After all, with such a vast treasure of cheese available, what was the rush? How wonderful is this! This cheese will last us a lifetime, Hem exclaimed. The 2 little humans were content in their world. They were happy and successful, feeling secure with their treasure trove of cheese. Hem and Haw had settled down near Station C, finding new holes close by so they could always be near the cheese. They believed firmly that Station C was exclusively theirs. They had written on its walls, "Having cheese makes you happy." Every day they read these lines and felt joy. "This cheese is ours. We deserve it. We worked hard to find it," Him would say, picking up a large piece of cheese and joyously stuffing it into his mouth. After eating his fill, he would fall asleep. At the end of the day, the little people, him and Haw, full from eating cheese, would return to their holes, then rise the next day with full confidence to follow the same routine. They knew there was still plenty of cheese for them. As days passed, him and Haw became increasingly arrogant. Meanwhile, Sniff and Scurry woke up early every morning and made their way to Station C, always checking for any changes there. Then they would sit down and begin eating the cheese comfortably. One morning, when the two mice reached Station C, they found that all the cheese was gone. They were not at all surprised because they had noticed the piles of cheese gradually diminishing. In fact, they were already prepared for this situation. Sniff and Scurry quickly put on their running shoes, understanding what must have happened. For the mice, the problem was as simple as its solution. Station C had changed, and now they needed to change accordingly. The two mice set out to find cheese elsewhere within the maze, with Sniff continuing to sniff and Scurry continuing to scurry. A few hours later, Him and Haw also arrived at Station C. However, they had never noticed the diminishing piles of cheese like Sniff and Scurry had. Thus, they were shocked to find no cheese. "What? There's no cheese here at all?" Him shouted. "No cheese, no cheese? Who took my cheese?" He continued to scream as if shouting would bring his cheese back. Anger reddened his face, his fists clenched, and he kept shouting, "This is not fair." Haw stood silently, staring in disbelief. He could not believe that such a vast amount of cheese had disappeared overnight. He had never expected that such a day would come, and he was utterly unprepared for this situation. Him yelled loudly, but it seemed like Haw couldn't hear anything. The reaction of the little humans was typical because their treasure of cheese had ended. And for them, cheese was not just food, it was security and happiness. For them, cheese meant a day on Cheddar Lane in their own cottage, a loving family, and a simple life. For him, cheese meant superiority. His dream was to manage the big cheese and have a large house on Camombo Hill. For the little humans, cheese was incredibly important. They pondered for a long time about what to do next, but ultimately they did nothing and kept wandering around Station C, still hoping that the cheese might somehow reappear. Meanwhile, Sniff and Scurry continued their search for cheese, whereas Him and Haw were just stomping around in anger. They were consumed by thoughts of unfairness and disbelief, unable to think beyond, "Why, it's not fair. This can't be happening." Soon, Haw slipped into depression, troubled by many questions about their future without cheese. What would they eat now? The day passed in this manner, and Him and Haw returned to their holes, hungry and tired. They wrote on the walls, "The more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it." The next morning, they went back to Station C, expecting maybe, just maybe, some cheese would be there. But there was nothing left at Station C. Then Haw thought of Sniff and Scurry. Maybe they knew something. "But what would they know?" Him said. "We are smarter than those mice." "I know we are smarter, but right now we are not acting very smart," Haw replied. "Things are changing, Him, and we need to change too." "Why should we change?" Him argued, feeling that the little people were special and that the cheese belonged only to them. We didn't create this problem. Someone else did. We need to do something about it, he said. Haw thought they should take action rather than overanalyzing the problem. But Him was angry. No, I'm going to get to the bottom of this problem, he said. While Him and Haw were wandering around Station C, Sniff and Scurry had ventured deep into the maze and found a place they had never seen before, Station N, filled with cheese. The mice rejoiced, having never seen so much cheese before. Back at Station C, Him and Haw was still feeling angry and frustrated. Haw kept thinking about the mice. He imagined himself on a new adventure within the maze, finding and eating cheese. Thinking about the cheese motivated him. "Let's go," Haw said aloud. "No, I want to stay here," Him replied. He was used to Station C and feared leaving it, but Haw kept motivating him. After all, they had roamed the maze before. Why couldn't they do it again? But convincing Him was difficult. He said he was too old and didn't want to embarrass himself by venturing out. He wanted to remain as he was, full of worries, frustrations, and excuses. But Haw was thinking differently. If they didn't leave this station, their situation would only worsen. "Think about it," Haw said. "If we keep repeating the same things, we will never improve." "Why don't you just sit here and wait? Maybe the cheese will come back," Him said. He was terrified of exploring outside, but Haw realized that cheese would never return to Station C. They needed to find a new source of cheese. Him tried to scare him. "You might not find cheese outside, and if you get lost, you might never come back." There was no guarantee that everything outside would be safe, and Haw felt this too. But he was excited by the adventure. Even if he got lost, maybe he'd find his way back. He dreamed of a new, fresh, and delicious cheese he had never eaten before, perhaps finding mozzarella, cheddar, and parmesan. Just thinking about it made his mouth water. Sometimes things change and never return to how they were before, and it seems like one of those times. This is life, and life moves on. "So we must move on too," he told Him. He tried hard to convince his friend, but Him was not ready to listen, and so Haw went his own way, feeling more alive. Though his situation was odd, he stood by his decision, laughing at himself. With a smile, Haw announced, "It's maze time." Before leaving, Haw picked up a stone and wrote on the walls, "If you do not change, you will become extinct." He remembered his days of depression. How had he ended up in this situation? Instead of asking, "Who moved my cheese?" Haw asked himself, "Why didn't I get up and move with the cheese sooner?" Taking a deep breath, he slowly walked away, feeling weakness in his knees. He was amazed at how long he had stuck at Station C. It was hard for him to venture back into the maze, so he told himself, "Next time the cheese finishes, I will step out of my comfort zone and arrange new cheese for myself." Haw was beginning to feel the changes in his life. With a smile, he said to himself, "Better late than never." In the following days, Haw found bits and pieces of cheese here and there. He occasionally got confused in the maze, but he never gave up. Stepping out of his comfort zone to search for cheese was no less than a challenge for Haw, but he felt it wasn't so bad. Whenever he encountered problems, Haw reminded himself that this situation was better than being completely without cheese. Searching for cheese was certainly better than just waiting for it to come back. At this moment, Haw began to feel that he had control over his life. He wouldn't let anything bad happen to him again. If Sniff and Scurry can do it, why can't I? Haw now realized that the cheese at Station C couldn't have disappeared overnight. Surely he had simply not paid attention. The pile of cheese had been diminishing daily, and he hadn't noticed it. Even the taste of the cheese was changing, indicating it was getting old. Haw could see these changes, but had ignored them. If he hadn't ignored them, he would have been prepared for this situation and not as shocked. He decided that from now on, he would stay alert. From today, he would be ready for change and quickly adapt to any changing situation using his basic instincts. Haw paused to rest and wrote on the walls, "Smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old." Then he ventured deeper into the maze and continued on, finding a large station that appeared as big as Station C from the outside. It looked promising, possibly filled with cheese, but when he entered, he found nothing. Haw was greatly disappointed and thought maybe he should return to Station C. At least Him was there to keep him company. At this point, his courage was faltering, and he felt like giving up. What now? What if he fell or lost his way? Maybe he would never find cheese again. Negative thoughts swirled in Haw's mind, but then he asked himself, what would you do if you weren't afraid? He realized that it was his fear that was making things worse. He couldn't give up now. He had to continue the journey no matter what. Haw wrote on the wall, "Movement in a new direction helps you find new cheese." Haw laughed loudly. His fear was gone. Whatever would happen, he would face it. Now, the journey seemed exciting to him. Why do I feel so good? I don't have any cheese, and I don't even know where I am going. Then he realized why this was happening. He wrote again on the wall, "When you stop being afraid, you feel good." He had been afraid for no reason, but now, as he was moving on a new path, everything seemed so much better. He had new hope for his future, feeling happy and excited. This moment marked a significant turn in Haw's mindset, embracing change and the uncertainties of life with newfound courage and optimism. Once again, Haw was lost in his fantasy, dreaming about cheese. As he thought about his favorite 5 types of cheese, the more he thought, the more real it felt, almost as if he was actually tasting the cheese. He wrote on the wall again, "Imagining yourself enjoying new cheese leads you to it." Initially pessimistic, Haw had now become optimistic. He wondered why he had feared change when change is crucial for improving life. Why didn't I think of this idea earlier? Haw asked himself. Then he sprinted back into the maze, feeling strong and motivated. Running, he spotted a cheese station with a few pieces of cheese at the door. It was a new type of cheese Haw had never seen before. He tasted a piece. It was delicious. He ate some more and filled his pockets with it. Then he opened the station door. Excited, but to his surprise, this cheese station was also completely empty. Perhaps someone else had already taken all the cheese. Haw knew he had to move quickly. Maybe he would find more cheese elsewhere. He picked up the pieces of cheese and thought of visiting him, hoping his friend might have changed his mind. He headed toward Station C. Before leaving, he wrote on the wall, "The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you find new cheese." Haw reached Station C where Him was. He offered Him some of the new cheese from his pocket. Him was pleased, but refused to try it. "I don't like new cheese. I wasn't used to this type of cheese. I want the old one, and until I find it, I won't try the new one," Him said. Hearing this, Haw was disappointed and silently walked away. Haw found himself back at the empty cheese station. He missed his friend, but he didn't want to give up his adventure. The joy he felt having overcome his fear was unlike anything he had experienced before. Today's Haw was completely different from the Haw at Station C, and he was confident that one day he would definitely find new cheese. He wrote on the wall, "It is safer to search in the maze than to remain in a cheeseless situation." Haw had realized that change is inevitable, whether you accept it or not. He remembered his old days when he felt scared and hopeless, thinking everything would only go wrong. But now, Haw had learned to adapt. That's why he wrote, "Old beliefs do not lead you to new cheese." From the time he changed his beliefs, his behavior had also changed. It's up to you whether to run away from change in fear or to face it optimistically. You can keep yourself in control because what happens to you is within your control. You choose your beliefs. Haw wrote some more notes on the wall. Where you see that you can find and enjoy new cheese, you can change course. Nothing small changes. Early help you adapt to the bigger changes that are to come. Haw's journey shows us the power of embracing change and optimism, and how it can lead to new beginnings and unexpected opportunities. Haw had left his past behind, now focusing solely on the present. He took big strides, feeling stronger than ever. It seemed his journey might never end, that perhaps he would keep moving throughout his life. But that was not the case. Soon his search was over. Haw passed through a corridor he had never seen before. Entering it, he discovered a new cheese station, Station N, and was astonished. The station was overflowing with cheese, more than even in his dreams. Every type of cheese was present, bright and tasty. Then he saw his mouse friends, Sniff and Scurry. Sniff nodded at him, and Scurry waved. He greeted them and joined them in feasting on the cheese. Haw climbed the highest pile of cheese, tasting every type he could see. He took off his shoes and hung them around his neck. Excitedly running around, Haw shouted, "Hooray for change!" Sniff and Scurry were happy to see him. Haw toasted with a large piece of cheese. Hooray, hooray, hooray. He realized that the fastest way to bring about change was to laugh at his own mistakes. He had changed his old methods, and look, he found cheese. He learned a lot from Sniff and Scurry. A mouse's life is quite simple. They don't complicate things like humans do. When they sense the cheese is over, they act immediately. The cheese moves, and so do they. Haw would always remember this lesson. Haw thought of him. He considered going to help him, but then remembered he had already tried. Him needed to find his own path and fight his own fears. He must do it himself, because no one else can help him unless he wants to change. If only him would step out of Station C and see Haw's writings on the walls. Haw remembered all those notes and compiled a summary that he wrote on the largest wall at Station N. Haw ate a bit more cheese. Then he heard footsteps. Perhaps it was him. Maybe now all four friends could finally move with the cheese and enjoy it. This culmination signifies Haw's full acceptance and mastery of change, not just in finding new cheese, but in understanding and embracing life's continuous and inevitable changes. His journey from fear and resistance to adaptation and joy illustrates the powerful impact of embracing change in our lives. In Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson, we witness a profound exploration of how change is an inevitable and integral part of life. Through the journeys of Sniff, Scurry, Hem, and Haw, we learn that our response to change can dictate the quality of our lives. While Sniff and Scurry demonstrate adaptability and the readiness to act upon changes swiftly, Him and Haw show us the struggle and resistance that many of us may feel. Ultimately, Haw's journey teaches us the most valuable lesson. Embracing change is not merely about survival, but about thriving. He learns to anticipate change, adapt quickly, and enjoy new experiences, leaving behind old behaviors and fears. This tale is a powerful reminder that in the maze of life, cheese constantly moves, and so must we if we are to find and enjoy new riches. Thank you for joining me in exploring Who Moved My Cheese? I hope this summary not only provided you with insights into adapting to change, but also inspired you to look at your own maze with a new perspective. If you found this summary helpful, please like, share, and subscribe for more insightful book summaries. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest uploads. Have you ever faced a significant change in your life? How did you adapt? Share your experiences in the comments below. Remember, change is not just an obstacle to overcome, but an opportunity to grow and discover. So the next time you notice your cheese moving, maybe it's time to lace up your running shoes and find new cheese.